Love is a beautiful thing, but when it's despised, it becomes the price one pays for their own undoing. As they say, men never realize what they have until they lose it. And for some, they don't just lose love, they lose their peace, their pride, and their soul. Danny thought he was walking into a better life when he left his wife for a younger girl. But he didn't know he was walking straight into a trap, one carefully built from his own betrayal. Because sometimes, the most painful heartbreak isn't what someone does to you, but what your own choices do to you in return. Danny and Becky had been married for 7 years. He was a respected bank manager, always in neat suits and a calm smile that made clients trust him. Becky ran a small tailoring shop near their home, humble, hard-working, and deeply loving. When they first got married, life was sweet. They didn't have much, but they had peace. They would sit outside in the evenings, laughing at small jokes and dreaming of better days. But as the years rolled by, things changed. Danny got promoted, life suddenly started moving faster, new friends came, new habits, new attention. At first, Becky was happy for him. She prayed with him, celebrated him. But the more he rose, the further he drifted away from her. He started coming home late. He no longer asked about her day. Her laughter no longer amused him. Her presence, once his comfort, began to irritate him. One night, while he scrolled through his phone in bed, Becky turned to him softly. "Danny," she called gently, "what's happening with you?" "You've changed. We don't even share moments of love together anymore, and you hardly talk to me." Without even looking up, he sighed loudly. "That's the problem, Becky. You nag too much. I need peace, not pressure." The words stabbed deep. She blinked back tears and whispered, "I'm only trying to save what we have." But he just turned to her briefly, his tone cold. "Then stop trying so hard." Maybe that's it. That night, Becky lay beside her husband, wide awake, staring into the dark, wondering when the man she married disappeared. Days passed, then weeks. He stopped calling her during the day. He began staying out late, claiming office work. She noticed a perfume on his shirts that wasn't hers. She found lipstick stains that weren't from her. When she tried to ask, he shouted at her, accusing her of mistrust. And one night, when she confronted him again, his hand almost met her face. He stopped midway, breathing heavily, glaring. "Becky, don't push me. And let me even tell you, you're not the woman I want anymore." That broke her completely. She cried in silence that night, clutching her pillow like a child. But even in her pain, she prayed for him. She begged God to touch his heart, to bring back her husband. But Danny was gone. Not physically, but in spirit. His heart now belonged somewhere else. And while Becky stayed up every night praying for his peace, Danny was already planning his escape, one that would shatter her peace forever. It happened a few months later. He met a young woman named Vera. She was beautiful, elegant, and spoke with a soft tone that carried both confidence and innocence. Her smile was warm. From the first day, something inside Danny stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. She always listened when he spoke. She laughed at his jokes. She complimented his tie, his work ethic, his handwriting. Small things Becky once used to love about him, but he had stopped appreciating. Soon, Danny started looking forward to work again, not because of his job, but because of Vera. He began to take her out for lunch, and each time, his ego bloomed like a flower. She made him feel admired, young, desired again. Within a month, he started buying her small gifts, a perfume, a wristwatch, a purse. She always accepted with that same sweet smile and a quiet, "Thank you, sir." One afternoon, after helping her solve a work issue, she looked up at him and said softly, "You're my favorite person, Danny. I'm beginning to love you deeply." That sentence did something to him. It filled the hole that years of distance had carved inside him. That night, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He compared everything: her laughter, her body, her energy, to Becky's quiet nature at home. And little by little, temptation became a decision. Weeks later, the inevitable happened. Vera became more. She became the woman who answered his calls late at night, the woman who made him smile again, the woman he believed understood him. He would lie to his wife now, saying he was working overtime, while in truth he was with Vera. At the office, everyone started whispering, but he didn't care. When Vera giggled beside him in public hangouts, he felt powerful again. He began to believe he deserved this. After all, hadn't he suffered enough nagging at home? Soon he rented an apartment on the outskirts of town. When Becky asked why, he said coldly, "I need peace. You've made this house unbearable." Becky looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Danny, please don't destroy our home. I still love you. Whatever is wrong, we can fix it together." He smirked, shaking his head. "It's too late for that, Becky." And just like that, he walked out. No goodbye, no hesitation. Only silence, the kind that breaks hearts without using words. And life with Vera began like a dream. She was exciting, unpredictable, and bold. She dressed in bright colors and wore confidence like a crown. With her, he felt young again. They went on weekend trips, took pictures together, and dined in expensive restaurants. She laughed loud, danced freely, and flirted without guilt. For the first time in years, Danny felt alive. But what he didn't realize was that he wasn't being reborn. He was being rebuilt for something he couldn't yet see coming. He stopped visiting home completely. When his family called, he ignored them. When his mother asked about Becky, he snapped, "She's fine, Mom. Please don't ask me about her again." Becky, meanwhile, cried quietly every night, clutching her Bible. She told no one about her pain. Her silence became her prayer, and her tears became the witness of a heart that had loved too deeply. One evening, Danny called Vera the best thing that ever happened to him. She smiled and kissed his cheek. But deep down, if he had looked closely, he would have seen it. The same coldness in her eyes that had once taken root in his. At first, life with her felt like everything Danny had ever wanted. She was young, beautiful, vibrant, the complete opposite of the quiet home he left behind. Vera laughed easily, dressed elegantly, and spoke with a confidence that made him feel like he was living a movie. Everywhere they went, people stared, and Danny loved it. It fed his ego. It made him believe he had upgraded. On weekends, she'd take him to fancy restaurants, snapping selfies and tagging locations he couldn't even pronounce. He would sit there, smiling awkwardly while she posed for pictures. Then she'd lean toward him and say, "Smile, babe. People should know I'm with someone successful." And just like that, he'd grin, pretending everything was perfect. For the first few months, it truly felt that way. They laughed often. She teased him, danced for him, and made him feel young again. Every time she called him my king, his chest swelled with pride. He thought, "This is what I've been missing." But good things that begin with deceit rarely last. And slowly, little cracks started showing. It began with small comments, sharp, playful at first, but filled with truth. "Danny, you're so old-fashioned. You don't even know how to dress trendy," Vera said, laughing. Danny smiled awkwardly. "I'm from a different generation, Vera. You know that," he said coldly. "Exactly," she said, rolling her eyes. "Sometimes I feel like I'm dating my uncle." He laughed it off, even though her words stung. He didn't want to argue. He was still trying to impress her, still trying to prove he wasn't as boring as she said. Then came her spending habits. Vera loved expensive clothes, shiny jewelry, and weekend trips with friends. Every few days, she'd come home with new shopping bags and say, "Babe, I saw something I liked. You don't want your girl to look cheap, right?" He'd sigh, open his wallet, and hand her money. At first, it didn't bother him. He was a manager, after all. But soon, the requests became endless. A new phone, a trip to Lagos for a friend's birthday, a gold necklace she swore would make her look classy beside him. To keep her happy, Danny kept giving, even when he started dipping into his savings. He wanted to prove that he could give her the life she desired, a life far above what he had ever given Becky. But life has a way of humbling those who think they can outsmart consequences. It started with little signs: electricity bill piling up, rent reminder, the quiet emptiness in his account balance. Then one day the bank sent him a notice. His credit card limit had been exceeded. He sat in his office that day staring at the paper. His hands trembled. He thought of how peaceful life used to be, how Becky used to save every little thing and make it stretch. Now he was drowning, all because he wanted to live young again. But he couldn't stop. He was trapped in a cycle of pride and shame. He couldn't let Vera see he was running out of money, not after leaving his wife for her. So he began borrowing. A little from friends, a little from his savings account, then eventually from his company's funds, money he promised to repay soon. But lies have short legs. His job performance started declining. He came to work tired, distracted, and emotionally drained. He began making mistakes, serious ones. Then one morning, his boss called him into the office. "What's happening, Danny?" he said gravely. "Your numbers don't add up. There's been a report of irregular transfers. What's going on?" Danny's throat went dry. He tried to explain, but his voice cracked. His mind was spinning. By the end of that week, he was suspended. A man once praised for his discipline and leadership, now sitting in his car, broken, unemployed, and terrified of what to tell Vera. That night he went home. His head felt heavy and his heart sinking. When he told Vera, she didn't even look shocked. She simply raised her eyebrows, crossed her arms, and spoke coldly. "So what are we going to do now? You know I can't live like this." He tried to laugh, hoping she was joking. "Vera, it's just temporary. I'll find something soon." She scoffed. "Find something? You're talking like a retiree. You had one job and you lost it. What kind of man can't handle pressure?" Danny's jaw tightened. "Vera, I did everything for you. She interrupted sharply. "Don't start blaming me. Nobody told you to throw money around to prove a point. You did that yourself?" He stared at her in disbelief. Was this the same woman who once said he was her king? He sat down quietly, holding his head in his hands. "I really left peace for this?" he whispered. Weeks passed. Life became cruel. The rent was due. His savings were gone. Vera's mood changed completely. She stopped caring about him. She refused to cook, refused to clean, and when he tried to talk, she either ignored him or hissed. One day, she came home late wearing a tight red dress. He stood up, angry. "Vera, where have you been?" "It's past midnight," he barked. She looked at him like he was invisible. "Oh, please. Don't start this nonsense. You're not my father. I'm not your father," he said. His voice rose. "But I'm the man in this house." She laughed bitterly. "Man? What kind of man can't even pay his bills?" The words hit him harder than a slap. He froze, speechless. She picked up her phone, scrolling through it casually. "I'm going out again tomorrow, and no, you don't need to ask me where." He sat back down quietly. His chest tightened with anger and shame. A week later, the worst happened. He sold his car, the only thing he had left of his pride. He used the money to pay the rent and buy Vera a birthday gift, hoping it would soften her heart. She smiled when she saw the gift, kissed him briefly, and said, "You see, you can still make me happy." But the next morning she was gone. No note. No message. When she returned 2 days later, he demanded, "Where were you?" She looked him dead in the eye and said coldly, "You don't have the right to ask me that. You're not my husband." He stared at her, stunned. "What do you mean I'm not your husband?" "I left my wife for you," he asked angrily. "Your mistake," she said sharply, picking up her handbag. That night they had their worst argument yet. Voices rose, insults flew, tears fell, and then, in a moment of rage, she shouted words that shattered him completely. "Look at you, broke thing. You think you're the only one who knows how to cheat?" The silence that followed was louder than her scream. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving Danny standing there, motionless. Her words echoed in his mind like thunder. "You think you're the only one who knows how to cheat?" And for the first time, Danny truly felt the weight of his betrayal. He sank slowly to the floor, burying his face in his hands. Every tear that fell that night carried the taste of regret, bitter, heavy, and long overdue. In that dark, lonely room, he finally understood what Becky must have felt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the helplessness. Only now, the pain was his to carry. And it was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks, and life became unbearable for Danny. Vera had changed completely. The woman who once filled his days with laughter now filled them with silence and scorn. She no longer laughed at his jokes. She barely looked at him when he spoke, and whenever he tried to share his worries or pain, she rolled her eyes or sighed impatiently. It was as if she had grown tired of pretending. Each evening, she returned home later than the night before, smelling of perfume that wasn't hers, carrying a coldness that cut deeper than words. If Danny asked questions, she brushed him off. If he complained, she mocked him. The apartment, once lively with their excitement, now felt haunted by emptiness. One evening, after another heated argument, Vera stormed out. The sound of the door slamming echoed through the small space like thunder. Danny stood still for a moment, staring at the door long after she was gone. Then he sank into the couch, his hands trembling, his heart heavy. He looked around the room, the half-empty bottles of beer, the stack of unpaid bills, the dust gathering on furniture he no longer cared to clean. Silence wrapped around him like a curse. It was in that silence he heard the sound of his own destruction. The next few days were worse. The little money he had left was almost gone. His friends, who once called to hang out, stopped picking up his calls. And Vera, the woman he gave everything for, was never around. She came home late, smelling of alcohol and luxury perfumes. One particular night, he held her hand and demanded furiously, "Vera, where have you been?" "Out," she replied arrogantly. Her tone was sharp and her eyes cold. He tried to talk one last time. "Can we just talk? We used to be happy. What happened to us?" She turned to him, her lips curled with disdain. "What happened to us?" she repeated. "You went broke. That's what happened. Happiness needs money to breathe, Danny, and you can't even afford air anymore." Her words sliced through him like a blade. He wanted to yell or even defend himself, but no sound came out. That night, when she left again, he sat alone in the dark, staring at the wall. He saw his reflection in the window, tired eyes, unkempt hair, a man who had lost everything and didn't know how to start again. He whispered to himself, "So this is what I left my wife for." A few days later, his health began to fail. It started as headaches, then dizziness, then fever. He ignored it at first. He was used to pushing through pain, but soon he couldn't stand properly. His hands shook, his body weakened. He tried calling Vera several times, his voice weak and scared. She didn't pick up. Finally, after hours, she answered. "Vera," he said softly, "I'm not feeling well. I think I need to see a doctor. Can you please come home?" Her tone was cold and annoyed. "Danny, please stop disturbing me. I'm not your wife. Find someone else to care for you." The phone line went dead. He stared at the phone, stunned. The words, "I'm not your wife," echoed in his mind. It pierced through his heart like a knife. He realized in that moment how deeply he had hurt Becky, the woman who once cooked for him, prayed for him, stood by him even when he pushed her away. And now, Here he was, weak, sick, and alone, calling out to a woman who didn't care whether he lived or died. And that night, he broke down completely. He sat on the cold floor, trembling and crying. He looked up toward the ceiling, whispering, "God, how could I have done this to myself? Why didn't I see it coming?" His tears wouldn't stop. They came from a place deeper than pain, from regret, from shame, from realization. He pressed his hands to his chest and whispered, "If I had known, Becky didn't deserve what I did to her." He thought of all the times he shouted at her, called her names, and ignored her love. He thought of how she stood there silent, still praying for him when he didn't deserve it. Every memory stabbed at him, her smile, her tears, her patience. He wished he could turn back time, but it was too late. "I destroyed my own home," he whispered. "I pushed away the only person who truly loved me." And that night, he made a decision. Once he felt strong enough, he would go back. He would find Becky, kneel before her and beg for forgiveness. Not because he wanted her back, but because he couldn't live without her forgiveness. He needed peace, even if it meant she never took him back. But fate wasn't done humbling him. The next morning, when he woke up, he immediately noticed something he'd never expected would happen. The apartment was unusually quiet. No sound of Vera, no sound of her heels or her humming. He called out softly, "Vera?" But there was silence. He dragged himself up, weakly limping to the bedroom. The wardrobe was open and empty. Her clothes were gone, her shoes, her bags, everything. He went to the bathroom. Her toothbrush was missing too. He rushed to her side of the bed and opened the drawer where she kept her jewelry. Empty. Panic hit him. He grabbed his phone and dialed her number. It rang once, then disconnected. He called again. This time it said, "The number you have dialed is switched off." He stood in the middle of the room, his chest rising and falling fast. She didn't leave a note. She didn't say goodbye. Just silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than any words. He sat down on the edge of the bed, shaking his head slowly. "She's gone," he whispered. "Just like that?" His eyes welled up with tears again, but this time it wasn't just pain. It was realization. He finally understood what Becky must have felt that night he walked out on her, leaving her with no explanation, no closure, just emptiness. He had become his own karma. Every tear, every lonely night, every ache he caused, now lived inside him. The hunter had become the hunted. The breaker had become the broken. And in that quiet room, surrounded by emptiness and echoes, Danny finally faced the truth. He was now living the same pain he once gave someone else. A week passed, but it felt like a lifetime for him. Sleep refused to come. His appetite was gone. He moved through his small apartment like a ghost, haunted by silence, haunted by regret. Everywhere he looked reminded him of his fall. The empty wardrobe where Vera's clothes used to hang, the untouched plate of food on the table, the echo of his own breathing. He couldn't take it anymore. One afternoon, after hours of pacing the floor, he finally decided to do what his heart had been whispering for days. He would go see his wife, Becky, the same woman he had shattered and left broken. He didn't know what to say or how to start, but he knew one thing. He needed to face her. He needed to beg. On that faithful Saturday morning, the sky was cloudy, heavy with the promise of rain. Danny wore a simple shirt and trousers, clothes that used to make him look respectable, but now hung loosely on his body. His reflection in the mirror frightened him. His once neat hair was rough, his face hollow, his eyes tired. Still, he went. He took a bus to their old neighborhood, the same route he used to drive every morning back when he still had a car, a family, and a life. As the bus passed familiar landmarks, memories stabbed at him like tiny knives. The bakery where Becky used to buy fresh bread, the church they once attended together, the small corner where she would wait to meet him on his lunch breaks. When the bus stopped, he stepped down slowly. The road felt different now, quieter and smaller. As he walked toward the gate of their old house, his legs were shaking. The moment he reached the door, he froze. The door was slightly open. He could hear faint voices inside. He hesitated. Then, gathering courage, he stepped in. The living room looked almost the same. Simple, clean, peaceful. There were new curtains, new furniture, but the spirit of the home felt familiar. He swallowed hard. His chest tightened. Then he heard footsteps. Someone was coming from the kitchen. The moment the person stepped out, he froze completely. He couldn't believe who he was seeing. It was Vera. His heart stopped. His breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Vera stood there holding a tray of teacups. She looked different, calm, composed, almost serene. No makeup, no tight dresses, no arrogance, just a plain skirt and a white blouse. "Vera?" he whispered. His voice cracked. What are you doing here?" She looked at him, then smiled, but it wasn't the sweet, flirty smile he knew. It was cold and calm. "Home," she said quietly. "I'm home. With my friend." "The very one you shattered." Danny stumbled back a little. His mouth became dry. You're Becky's friend?" he stammered in disbelief. Vera nodded slowly. Her eyes glistened, but her face remained steady. "Yes," she said softly. "I watched her cry every night because of you, Danny. I saw her starve herself, praying for you. I held her when she broke down, whispering your name in her sleep. And you—" She stepped closer now, her voice trembling with controlled rage. "You mocked her. You called her boring. You called her weak. You broke her." Danny's lips parted, but no words came out. "I couldn't stand it," Vera continued, tears now streaming down her face. "So I decided to break you too." Her voice was low, heavy with emotion. "Everything that happened between us was all planned. I wanted you to feel what she felt. To lose everything for love that wasn't real. To know what it's like to be replaced. To cry and realize no one's coming back." Danny's body shook. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest as if the pain inside him had finally taken form. "Vera, please," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I didn't know. She cut him off sharply. "You never cared to know." The silence that followed was suffocating. Danny's breathing became shallow. His tears dripped onto the floor. His mind replayed every moment, how he'd chosen her over his wife, how he'd left without explanation, how he'd smiled while Becky cried. And now, here they were, Vera and Becky side by side. Different women, but both pieces of the same lesson he had refused to learn. Just then, another door opened. Footsteps approached, slow, calm, and steady. It was Becky. She walked in, dressed simply, in a clean Ankara gown, her hair neatly tied back. She looked different too, peaceful, radiant, and whole. Time had healed her wounds and turned her pain into quiet strength. When her eyes met Danny's, he immediately bowed his head, unable to meet her gaze. He felt like a child caught in his own sin. Becky looked at him for a long moment. Then softly she said, "I heard your voice, Danny. I knew you'd come one day." Her tone was calm, not angry. There was no hatred, only a calm acceptance that made Danny's guilt feel heavier. "Becky," he began, his voice shaking. "Please, I came to say I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I can't sleep. I can't eat. My life has fallen apart. I just need to tell you that I'm sorry. Truly sorry." She nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. Her next words shocked him to the core. "Danny," she said quietly, "I forgave you a long time ago." He looked up at her quickly. His eyes widened. You forgave me?" "Yes," she said in a steady voice. "Because I didn't want to carry hate in my heart. Hate would have destroyed me, not you." She paused, then added softly, "But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you back." That sentence broke him completely. He fell forward, sobbing openly now, his palms flat on the floor. "I understand," he cried. "I understand. I don't even deserve your presence." Tears streamed down his face, and he whispered, "I lost everything. I thought I was smart. I thought I was chasing happiness. But I was chasing my own destruction." He looked up at her again, his voice trembling. "Becky, you were my peace. I just didn't see it." Becky looked at him with quiet pity. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply said, "Some lessons in life come too late." Vera stood by the doorway, tears welled in her eyes. She helped her friend, yes, but she also felt the emotions between the two. Danny finally rose to his feet, unsteady and broken. He looked around the house, the home he had destroyed, and realized it had never been the walls or furniture that made it special. It was her. It was Becky. And she was gone. Forever. As he turned to leave, his legs trembled. He took one last look at Becky, still feeling broken, and walked out into the rain. Each drop that touched his skin felt like judgment. Cold, relentless, cleansing. He had lost his wife. He had been used by her friend. He had destroyed everything with his own hands. As he walked away, one truth echoed in his heart. The pain that breaks a man the most isn't the one caused by others. It's the one he builds himself. And in the end, the only thing that stayed with him was regret. Moral of this story: never destroy a heart that loves you. Because when you do, life doesn't always punish you immediately. Sometimes it makes you live long enough to watch what you lost become the very treasure you can never have again. Remember, lust fades, pride ruins, but regret never leaves. Do you think Danny deserved what he got? If you were Becky, would you have forgiven him or watched him suffer in silence? And what about Vera? Do you believe she did the right thing, or did revenge only make her like him? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Emma Day, where every story reveals the heart, the hurt, and the hidden lessons of life.